So, as anyone who ever teaches anything pretty quickly figures out, teaching is a complex endeavor, and beginning strings is really not an exception to that. However, I would say that the prospect of teaching beginners becomes a little less daunting if we're able to let ourselves be guided by what I've boiled down to just a few core principles of effective string teaching. We can use these principles as lenses through which we can consider, select, and then apply all the various strategies that exist in the string pedagogy universe. So, we'll talk about those core principles here. One of the most important core principles is the need to exercise patience in your instructional pacing. Take as much time as necessary for students to become solid in their fundamentals. Do not progress to next steps before the overwhelming majority of the class is able to demonstrate prior steps accurately and reliably. Learning skills thoroughly from the start is preferable to correcting ingrained bad habits later in the year or in future years. Part of effective pacing is recognizing the importance of review. Every lesson should begin by incorporating learnings from prior lessons. This review should lead organically into the introduction of new material. Also, be aware that the mantra of review, review, review isn't just a beginning orchestra thing. Even the most advanced secondary ensembles require ongoing, direct re examination of technical fundamentals. Sometimes we feel pressured to get to a certain point or learn specific skills or tunes by the time of the concert. There is no need to allow the calendar to dictate your pacing. Simply plan for students to perform whatever they are ready to perform by concert time. It's far better that they perform simpler tunes or exercises very well, rather than require families, others in the audience, and the students themselves to endure substandard performances of material for which the students simply were not ready. If you're using a method book series, know that there is no law requiring the completion of book 1 in year 1. This may be possible if you teach classes that meet more than 2 or 3 days a week, or if your beginners are older and can move successfully at a faster pace. However, finishing the book is not the goal. Getting the students to learn as much as they can at a consistently high level is the goal. Also, be aware that students know when they're doing well and when they're not doing well. They are more likely to stick with their instrument in a learning environment where their success is the priority. Another core principle is the importance of relaxation, which is key to good playing technique. Our goal is to teach students toward tension free playing. Relaxed technique maximizes comfort, clears the way to good sound results, and, consequently, makes playing far more enjoyable. Recognize that gravity is our friend in string playing. We should use the laws of physics to our advantage. Note that relaxation begins within the torso and extends out towards the extremities. We can often see tension in players, whether through hiked shoulders or hand shapes that appear awkward or stiff, but we shouldn't rely only on the visual, especially with the arms, hands, and fingers. We encourage relaxation directly as well as indirectly. Whenever possible, choose language that promotes relaxation and avoid language that inadvertently suggests tension. See some examples here. In musical learning, as with most other areas of life, anything worth doing is worth doing well. Even at the beginning levels, the musical result of our student should sound good. Contrary to popular belief with regard to string learning, the fact that students are just beginners should not be an excuse to settle for sounds that are scratchy, weak, out of tune, or, in ensemble work, just not together. This principle ties directly into patient pacing. If the techniques students are working on aren't yet consistently accurate for most individuals and for the group as a whole, then it isn't time to move on just yet. Our goal should be to teach so thoroughly that not only are the students likely to get it right, but it should be very difficult for them to get it wrong. Even though there is much we know we need to cover, bear in mind that just because you taught it doesn't necessarily mean the students learned it in the first pass. We need to consistently engage our powers of observation, what we see, what we hear, and what we can perceive kinesthetically, to gauge students' progress toward mastery. As discussed earlier, this also means being ready to review and reteach as needed, finding different ways to describe, demonstrate, and walk students through the steps towards good technique. A good beginning string class is both rigorous and enjoyable. Find ways to keep students engaged, maybe even entertained, so that they enjoy the process of learning. There is an incredible amount of detail and minutia that students have to master in order to learn to play an instrument well. In the best cases, students are so excited about their experience that they don't necessarily realize how much they're actually learning. The enjoyability factor begins with letting the student pick their own instrument. There is no need to aim for a particular balance of instruments at the beginning level, especially since all of the early work is in unison anyway. Another note about the method book. If you use a method book, it should be employed as a tool in your curriculum. The quality of your teaching is the real key to the success of your class. As long as you're committed to quality teaching, including good coverage of the basics, logical sequencing, patient pacing, monitoring, and adjusting, you can be successful with any method book or no method book at all.